What's up, everyone? So, I have been asked many, many times about my spiritual journey and how did I get to where I'm at today. And I always have to tell like a fast version of it. So, I kind of thought it would be cool to give the full version as much as I can remember, at least, here, right now. So, I'm gonna start with before I got into any of this spiritual stuff, I truly was just a regular guy. I'm gonna just start from childhood. Um, I mean, honestly, in childhood, I growing up, I would see spirits in my house, anyone's house, outside, everywhere, and it just depend. It like I always thought it was my imagination. Basically, I always thought that it was me just putting that person or that thing there, so I didn't put much weight into it. And then going forward in my life as a kid and a teenager and even a young adult, I always knew there was something out there. I didn't know if it was like some guy in a throne sitting there dictating what happens in the world or if it was actually something else. And so as I went through life, I had many things that happened, like near death kind of things where like I could have died, but I didn't. And I felt like the universe saved me. And I started to feel a connection with the plants and the trees and stuff like that when I was a little bit younger. In my teenage years, I would always pull off a branch of a tree and I would snap it and just keep snapping it, snapping it, snapping it until it got real little. And I one day I grabbed one and I was like, oh, I feel like I shouldn't do this. And so I still did it. And I was like, man, I feel like I shouldn't have done that. That's weird. Then the next time I went to grab one, I felt like I shouldn't as well. And I was like, what the heck? And then I stopped doing it because I just felt like there was something telling me not to do that. And fast forward, that was kind of like my connection there. I always felt like I had another voice in the head that would like talk to me about things, God, universe, spirit guides, whatever you want to say. But I just always thought it was another, like it's just my thoughts, basically. So fast forward, I'm a regular guy. I was like an electrician, and I was actually, you know what? I'm gonna rewind a little bit. So moving forward, I was at the time. What was I? I don't even remember what I was doing, but actually, so I was delivering papers for the Cincinnati Enquirer, and that's what I did. I would deliver these newspapers, and I was out from like 12 o'clock in the morning until like 5, 6 in the morning. And while I was doing this paper route, I would experience weird things every once in a while. I had this very strong connection with owls, and one day I was on my route and I was at the end of a cul-de-sac and I was turning around, and as I was going right next to the road, like right next to my window, like right here, as I'm turning, I went past something and I was like, what in the heck was that? And I like reversed and looked, and sure enough, there was an owl just sitting on the pole looking at me. And I was like just sitting there talking to it, and I felt this strong connection like no other. Like it was trying to tell me something, and I just had no clue what it was trying to tell me. So then fast forward throughout the years, I mean, there were so many times when owls would come down in front of my car and they would swoop down right in front of me, or they would be flying right next to my window, or landing in a yard right in front of me. It was just the craziest thing, and I would see them all the time. Then I kind of was like, because I was like, what's going on here? And it never, I could never figure it out. And I didn't think anything spiritual. I had no clue about this realm of things. And then there was one time I saw a vision when I was opening this door to an apartment on my route, and in the door I could see the reflection of myself and a car behind my car behind me, And when I opened that door, it was like I had this flash of like this guy standing there like a shepherd with his sheep behind him. And then it like snapped back, and I was like, what in the heck was that? Like, I never experienced anything like that. So I told my wife about it, and she was my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, I just saw it, and I told her, and she was, oh, that's crazy. We were like, whatever. We had no clue. So then, last thing with this era of stuff is I was in my car one day, and I had a water bottle, and I would always just throw my trash out of the window. That's just what I did. That's what all my friends did. That's what I thought we did. And I took this water bottle, threw it out like I did any other day, and I felt like I shouldn't have done that. Similar to that leaf or the tree branches when I would rip them off and break it. And I was like, whatever. So then I grabbed another one like the next night or later on that day, and I went to throw it, and I was like, whoa, I really feel like I shouldn't do this. And I still did it. Then the next day, I had one, and I was like, I know I shouldn't do this, but I did it anyway. And that next day, things started to go really badly. Not like I'm cursed or anything crazy, but like things weren't aligning. It felt unaligned. At that time, I had no clue what unaligned felt like, but if I could tell you now, I was unaligned or not in alignment. So I then stopped throwing my water bottles out. And when I made that choice, when I had one, and I was like, no, I'm going to just keep it in my car and throw it away at the end of the night. Then things started getting really good. And then I started to see this pattern where I would do some things that were like good. Like I started to feel like someone or something was watching me when no one else was, in like not a creepy way. Like the good things that I was doing behind the scenes, they weren't unnoticed. So then I started doing good things, and then I started to feel like I was being rewarded by something or someone or whatever. And then I started to have that kind of a relationship with the universe. Still did not know what it was. I knew there was something there at this point, though. I was like, there's definitely something communicating and working with me. And that's kind of where I went with my life. But it just, only thing it did was make me a good person and not do bad things behind the scenes. And so fast forward with that. Now we're going to get into me being an electrician. So I was just a regular electrician working a 9 to 5 job. I had my weekends off. Always was like, dude, this is just for the birds. Like, this is not what life is supposed to be. And one night I was outside, really drunk on a Saturday night with one of my best friends. And we were drunk, just standing out in the driveway, just looking at the sky, looking at the stars. And everyone else was like in the garage that was open and hanging out and playing beer pong, and me and him were just out there. I think he was smoking a cigarette or something, I don't know. But and I was like, dude, like, do you ever feel like you are just here for a bigger purpose? Like, not like you're just like, more important than anybody, but almost like you're the main character in this in a way, and like there's just this bigger thing that you should be doing. And he was like, dude, yes. Like, I was just thinking about that the other day and whatever. And I was like, yeah, man. Like, and that kind of was it. But that stuck with me. And I was like, I do feel that. So then it went away. That was the end of it. A couple weeks later, I was at work. And we would always watch YouTube or listen to videos. It's stuff like that while we did our work. And I was there, and that day I was like, dude, I have to I have to learn something. I don't know what it is, but I have to learn it. And at that time I was like, I had told that same friend, because I worked with him as well, I was like, dude, I feel like I need to learn something, or I don't know what it is. I've never felt this before in my life. And he's like, oh, that's weird. He's like, well, I can give you this to research or whatever. And it was like a bunch of conspiracy stuff, which, by the way, is now true. So it wasn't conspiracy stuff. It was truth that was being spread, but it was being called conspiracy. But anyway, I was like, no, this isn't it. So then I started watching, I was like, what do I need to learn? Like, this is so confusing. And I kept hearing the word knowledge. And it was like, knowledge. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I went to Google and I typed in knowledge, and a YouTube video came up of like ancient Earth or something, like how the Earth became to be and our souls became to be here, or I don't know, something like that. And I was like, oh, this is it right here. And then I was like, no, this isn't it, but it's interesting. I'm gonna watch it. And then the next video came, and I was like, this isn't it, but I'm gonna watch it. Then the next video, next video, next video. Fast forward literally like 7 hours. Like it was a long time, and I got to a video of meditation, of a person just teaching people how to do meditation. And I was like, this is it. I just knew it. I felt it. And I just want to remind you, I had no clue what intuition was, what spirit guides were. I did hear the term spirit guide when I was like 8 years old on a TV show, like Ricky Lake or something. I don't know, some kind of TV show. And it was like this taboo thing that this lady was saying, everybody has a spirit guide. And I was like, oh, and like, and I was like, I feel like everybody does have a spirit guide. Like that does feel like something that people would have, and it interests me, but that was the end of that. But I had no clue about any of this stuff. So I come home that day and I was excited because I was like, I'm going to freaking meditate tonight. This feels so good. And like, this is the thing, like, that excitement is a whole different level. Like, you know, something really big is getting ready to happen, but you have no clue what it is. And I didn't have any clue what was going on at that point. So I went home and I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm going to go meditate. And she was like, okay, have fun. And I was like, I will. And I went into the room and I sat down on this old couch that was in there for forever. And I YouTubed meditation music. And this one song came up. It's like 12 hours long. And it's just different frequencies, healing frequencies. And I turned that on. And I closed my eyes. And I was like, I had my eyes closed. And I felt like I don't want to have my eyes closed to where I'm sleeping, or like where I'm getting ready to go to sleep. I don't want to feel that way. I was like, I'm just going to look into my eyelids. Like, I'm going to look like I'm looking into my eyelids. And I did. And also, really quick, rewind a teeny bit. I told my friend that day about meditation. And I was like, dude, you should do meditation. Like, you should try it with me and see how it works. Like, I feel like it's something I should do. Like, you should try it too. He's like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I said, all right, do it tonight and let me know what happens tomorrow. And he was like, all right, cool. So anyway, back to where I was at. So I'm meditating, and all of a sudden I start to see these colors swirling and swirling and swirling. And I was like, what is this? Like, I felt like I was like blacking out for a second. That's kind of how it felt. And I was like, oh God. And I opened my eyes. And then I was like, no, I'm not blacking out. I need to see that. For some reason, I just knew that. So I kept looking at those colors, and they were like oscillating and just swirling. And it was just like such a cool experience. And I got lost in those colors. But then through those colors, this tree line appeared in my vision, and a purple sky was there. And it was like I was laying or sitting in a field, and there was this tree line, dark tree line. It was nighttime, and the sky was dark black, like purple-ish. And I would sit there, and I felt like I was like coming out of a grave, not a grave, but like out of the ground, like I was emerging. And that's the vision that I was kind of like getting. And it was a very real feeling vision as well. And and I laugh because of something I'm getting ready to tell you in 1 second. But shoot, man, I done lost my train of thought because of what just happened. So where was that? So meditating. All right, so I was meditating, and then I was getting to that tree line, and I felt like I was getting up, and I was like going to be seeing that, like I was going to experience whatever I needed to experience. And then I would kick myself out of it every time because I would get excited or whatever. And that just happened. And then all of a sudden, I saw this fiery dragon, what I thought at the time, but it was actually a phoenix. I saw this fiery phoenix. It was on fire, and I was like, whoa. I opened my eyes at that point. I was like, what was that? Like, what the hell was that? That was so cool. Closed my eyes and then meditated for a little bit longer, and then I was like, dude, that was the coolest experience ever. And then I went on about my day like everything was fine. That was on a Thursday. So then Friday happens, and I went to work with my friend. Totally forgot that he was supposed to meditate as well. And then, actually, no. I told him about my meditate. Or no. I didn't. I lied. Totally forgot about the meditation. And I want to pause there for a second, because as I was talking, my father-in-law actually came in. He's passed away. He came in and reminded me about him, because he's the main cause of like all of this. So he passed away about a month before our wedding. Tragic heart attack while running a marathon. Terrible. We were all devastated, obviously. When he passed, I did see him in my mind beating himself up about dying, basically, which is typical Gary way. And about a year or so after that, after his death, is when all that I'm talking about with the knowledge and stuff happened. So this will be important in a second. Now back to where I was. So then Friday comes along, and I start to meditate. Like, I go to work, get off work, and we're getting ready to go down to our friend's house. We would go down Friday and Saturday, get plastered drunk until 4 a.m, playing beer pong, shooting BB gun, I don't know, whatever the heck we did. It was just a blast. It really was. But so Friday happened, and then I got home, and I was like, look, we're going to go down and hang out at our friend's house. I was talking to my wife. I was like, we're going to go hang out at our friend's house, but I have to meditate first. And when I did, I went in and I meditated. I was so excited to do it because it felt so good, and I knew this is what I needed to do. So I did. I had my palms up, my music playing, and then I started looking in my eyelids, and then the colors started swirling again. And I was like, heck yeah, this is so awesome. I can't wait to see this field. And sure enough, the tree line, the field appeared. And at this point, I'm just enjoying that. And then all of a sudden it flashes to this vision. Never saw anything like this in my life. Up to that point. Now it's like, I see it all the time. But like, in my left hand, which is your spiritual side, they had no clue at the time that it was extended out like this. I can't really show you, but it was like out in front of me. And there were 3 girls, maybe 4, I think it was 3 girls. They all had their hands on top of like my hand. Like they were all grabbing my hand in a nice way. Not like, but they were grabbing my hand and they were giggling. I couldn't see their face. It was only like from here down. It was the 3 girls. There was a crystal ball on the table, which I knew what a crystal ball was, but I had no clue about any of that. There were tarot cards, which I had no clue what a tarot card was. There was like pendulums and crystals and all kinds of stuff sitting around. And I had no clue what any of that was at this time. And the girls were giggling and they were like, stay with us, stay with us. And I was like, and I like opened my eyes and I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, I have never seen anything like that before. And that was the end of that. And I kept that to myself for like a couple of days. So I went down to my friend's house that night. And me and my friend and a few other friends were sitting out on the stairway, like their basement stairway. They were smoking a cigarette or something. And I was just out there hanging. And we were kind of just hanging out. And then my friend was like, oh, dude, I forgot to tell you. I did the meditation stuff the other night. He said, and like, you know, the weirdest shit happened. He said, I didn't really even want to tell you because it's like, or he said like, and some weird stuff happened, but like, it was like, you know, I like, who knows, whatever, but it was like crazy. And I was like, dude, same here. I was like, I meditated. And when I was meditating, I saw, and he was like, as I said, he said, a fiery dragon. And I was like, yes. And I was like, he was like, I did too. And I was like, no way, dude. Like, that's freaking crazy. And at that moment, I knew something big was happening. I knew it. And that friend, unfortunately, chose to go more the conspiracy hate kind of route. And he still eventually is going to blossom out into a spiritual person if he allows himself to. But that was his chance to, and he didn't. He chose to awaken another way. And he's still awake, and he's a very enlightened person. But so then that next night, I was sitting down with my wife. We were just hanging out, and I was like, all right. I was like, look, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but like the other night when I was meditating, and I told her about the colors, I told her about the girl, and she's sitting there and she's listening, and I was like, so like I don't know what the fuck like what it was. And she was like, she said, well, first thing, she said, I don't think you're crazy. She said, I completely believe everything that you're saying because you would never say anything like that, like lying or anything. And she said, but all I can say is I have no clue how to help you. She said, I think you should reach out to someone spiritual that can help you or someone that knows about that stuff that can help you. And I was like, that's a good idea. So I went online and I typed in spiritual forums because I would use forums all the time for like my cars when I was like in the car scene and stuff to get car parts and like talk about problems with my car. And literally the website was called like spiritualforum.com. And I went on there and I gave my whole experience, and I was so excited because I knew someone was going to help me. And I gave my whole experience, and people started to comment that I was having seizures, and that's why I was seeing colors, and that I was seeing my neurons flashing in my head. That's why I was seeing the colors and the things that I was seeing. And maybe I'm having a psychiatric break or something. And I was like, no. Like, I was so crushed. I truly was, because I knew something crazy was going to happen. Like, I knew this was like the beginning of something amazing. But now it's being crushed, and everybody's telling me that it's not real. And I'm like, well, shit. And at that time, I was like, maybe it's not real. Even though I know it's not, or even though I know it is, maybe it's not. And then that next morning, I woke up and someone messaged me on the forum, like while I was sleeping. And I was like, here we go. Someone else telling me I'm having a seizure. And it was a lady. I don't know if her name was Tanya on there, but her name's Tanya in real life. And she messaged me and said, hey, look, everything that you're experiencing is real. You are tapping into your clairvoyance, and you need to start doing energetic protection and grounding and blah, blah, blah. And she said, like, your spirit guides, which this was the first time I heard spirit guides since that show a long time ago. She said, your spirit guides are jumping for joy that you are awakening, and they're asking me to teach you, or to help you and teach you and help you grow through this. So on one hand, I was like, oh my gosh, like finally someone's going to help me. Like, this is amazing. This is the beginning of whatever it is. And it makes sense. And I know this is what I need to be learning. Like, this is it. But then I was also like, when's she going to ask for money? Because I didn't have it. I had no money. I was like, when's she going to ask for money? Because I'm not going to be able to pay her to help me. And just to squash that question is, over, like, even to this day, it's been like 10 years ish, and she's never asked me for a penny ever. And she's truly an amazing person. So she is like, all right, so we got it, like we talked about it. She told me everything that's going on, and I was like, this is blowing my mind. So I started doing protection. I started doing grounding. And I used to have very bad anxiety where, like, if I went to the movies, I would feel like I'm dying. Like, I can't breathe. I'm seeing tunnel vision. I'm sweating. Feel like I'm going to pass out. If I went out to eat, like, I couldn't go out to eat because I would feel that way. When I started doing protection and grounding, it went away. Didn't feel it anymore. Changed my life. Yeah, there's some occasions when it's bad, but very, very rare, opposed to every single day, all day long. Crazy difference. And then she's like, your guides, well, And then she's telling me, hey, your guides like are so excited. I'm like, well, what do these guides look like? And she was like, there's one main guide that like is always around. The other ones I haven't really been able to see that much. She said, but like this guide is like so excited, and he also thinks that he's a funny guy, and he cracks a lot of jokes, and he has this curly brown reddish hair. And I was like, holy shit. Like that's Brittany's dad, my father-in-law. That's Gary. And and um and even as I'm saying this, he's like laughing and stuff because like it's crazy. And so at that point, I get to tell Brittany that her dad's helping me through this, and Brittany's my wife. And then we were like, all right, Dad. She was like, all right, Dad. If the lady was like, he wants to visit you. He wants you to know that he's with you. So ask him to show you what kind of animal he is coming down as, or ask him to come down to you as an animal. And we did. And immediately leaving our house, she asked, like right then and there, and then we left our house to go get dinner, and we saw a hawk that we usually don't see. It flew right in front of us. We were like, okay, hawk. Didn't think anything of it. And then, well, we thought of it, but we didn't like chalk it up as it's a hawk. Then we were on the highway, and there was a hawk on a telephone. Or no, I lied. We were somewhere else. There was a hawk somewhere. I can't think of the dang whole story now. It was a long time ago. But there was another hawk. And Brittany was like, okay, Dad, if you're coming down to us as a hawk, can you come down one more time? And we were almost home. We were kind of like, maybe it's not a hawk. And then, boom, there was another hawk there. And so we got shown a hawk 3 times when we haven't seen a hawk our whole lives just about. So now we see hawks like literally daily just about. And in weird situations and stuff as well. So anyway, he's a big guider in this whole thing. Big guide, an angel, honestly, at this point. So anyway, so she says your guides are saying that they want you to, that you are destined or learn or need to learn Reiki energy healing. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I have no clue what Reiki energy healing is. And she's like, well, feel like, she broke it all down and everything. And then she said, I want you to feel your foot chakra. I was like, what the fuck's a chakra? But I'll give it a try. She explained that. And then I went to feel my foot chakra. And I was like, I do feel something warm there. Or actually, no, I didn't feel anything there. And she was like, well, your foot chakra's clogged. And I was like, whatever. Like, this is a crock of shit. But I'm still going to go with it. I'm still going to do it. Because I felt like I should. And then she walked me through the process to unblock it. And sure enough, I started to feel heat coming out of the bottom of my foot. Then I went to my other foot, and there was already heat coming out of that one. Then I felt my wife's foot, and there was heat coming out of that. I was like, well, maybe it's just that it's a hot spot of the body, and there's just heat coming out of it. And then she was like, you can also feel energy in the body anywhere. It doesn't have to be a chakra. She said, ask your wife if she has a pain in her body, and then have her give you the, like it's in the back. And then try to feel into it and see if you can figure out where that energy is coming from and so on. So I asked my wife, I said, do you have any pains in your body? And she said, yeah. I said, don't tell me where it's at exactly. I said, but is it like in your arm area or is it like in your stomach, your back? She said, it's my back. I was like, all right. So I had her flip over and I started putting my hand over her back. And then I felt heat. What I didn't know was happening, or what I knew was happening, but I had no clue that I was actually doing it, is I was imagining or seeing a ball of energy in her back. It was literally a ball. And then this line went up her back, up into and around her shoulder. And then it stayed there. And I was like, I said, all right, so I'm feeling it right. I was like, the ball is where it's got to be heard, and it has to be. And then I was like, it's right here. She was like, maybe. She said, but really it's like up here, and it goes around my shoulder. And I was like, well, hold on. I'm seeing that too, but like I'm seeing this ball, and like I was getting excited at this point. So I told my teacher that, and she was like, well, you found the source of it. And it's going up, it's wrapping up into her shoulder, whatever. So I released it, and their back got better. that was when I was kind of like, okay, there's something to this. And then there's so many other things that I can get into with that, but I want to keep it kind of like subject by subject and not dive all the way. And I can literally, I'm being so serious, I could talk for like 4 hours about this. So anyway, started learning energy healing. I think I learned Reiki up to the level of Reiki level 2 at that time. And then she was like, hey, she said, your guides are wanting me to channel a program for you. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds cool. Like, let's do it. And she was like, well, I'm going to channel it tonight and I will get it to you tomorrow and let you know what we're doing. I was like, okay, cool. And I woke up the next morning with like this huge message, like a lot. And she's like saying, hey, they're telling me to do a chakra bonding program with you. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds cool. I have no clue what chakras are really at this point, and I don't know what we're going to be doing. So anyway, she said we're going to go through each chakra and we're going to open them up. Not open them, we're going to cleanse them, and we're going to clear them out and allow them to flow to their optimal flow, and we're going to get you in balance and get your energy flowing beautifully, and it's going to awaken you like no other. So I had no clue what to expect. I truly didn't. And again, I can talk on this whole journey for another 45 minutes or an hour. Like, I can. I truly can. I'm going to shorten it up just a little bit, though. A lot of it. But, so I started doing this where I would sit down every day for a week with each chakra. Sometimes it would take 2 weeks. And I started to feel energy. I was starting to pick up on people's energy. I was starting to become aware when someone had a lot of anger energy around them, and like all of that stuff. I was realizing what kind of emotions, what kind of stuff was being held in each chakra. And then I got to my heart chakra. This is a story I've told many people, so you might have heard it before, and if you have, great. If you haven't, it's going to be even greater. But I was in my heart chakra, and I started to realize that my friend was stealing my energy. And I started having dreams about it, because when I got in my heart chakra, I was looking into this pond to see my reflection of who I truly am. And when I did, I was seeing my friend, and I was like, what is this? And then I started having dreams about him fighting me and stuff. So anyway, I went to work, and I was like, all right, he's stealing my energy. I'm going to set a bubble of protection to stop him from stealing my energy. And I did. And he started to visibly get angry and agitated, to the point where he threw his tool in his toolbox, or in the machine he was working in. He stood up, started pacing around. At that point, I was like, I'm going to take the bubble off. He can steal my energy again. And I did. And then he started to calm down. And then he sat down and he was scratching his head. And he was like, dude, I have no clue what just happened. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I just got so agitated out of nowhere. And I was like, well, has it ever happened before? And he was like, no, that's why I'm worried right now. I don't know what just happened. And I was thinking, like, he was subconsciously, he had no clue. He was stealing my feel-good energy. And now he wasn't able to, and that made him agitated. It made him feel his own energy. So I had to wean him off of my energy. So each day I came in, I would put the bubble up and only allow him to steal 95% of the energy, then 90, then 85, and I weaned him off my energy. So anyway, got to the heart chakra, then I got to the throat chakra. And at that point, my psychic abilities started to open up a lot, like a lot. I was communicating with spirits. I was able to do psychic readings and get messages for people. I was able to communicate with my spirit guides. I was able to do anything at that point. Energy healing. And I started to dabble in all of it. And my attention got away from doing the chakra bonding. And I kind of stopped at the throat chakra for months. And then I had to go back and revisit it. And then I stopped again. And I went back and revisited it. And eventually I finally finished it. But it wasn't easy. And it took a lot of dedication that I didn't have at the time. A lot of growing, a lot of I met some like ascended masters. I have met some like my higher self. Like there was like, oh, so many magical things that happened during that period of that chakra bonding. And then once I was done with that, I started to be able to learn from my own guides. So I kind of outgrew my teacher. Not that I was like more wise or more knowledgeable or anything like that. You outgrow your teachers and you start to learn from either someone else or your guides. And my guides said, hey, you're going to learn from us. And so I did. And I started listening to them and they were guiding me. And this is an important story that I want to tell because it's really cool. But I was in a place where I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, maybe I should become a healer of some sort. Maybe I should become an ambulance driver. Maybe I had no clue what I should do, but I knew I wanted to heal and help people. So I found this spiritualist church and I started going to it and I started bonding with everyone there, and there was some messages that were given to me, and a lot of people were like, dude, you are so intuitive, you have such a big future. And I'm like, yeah. I was afraid to talk in front of like 4 people if they're looking at me and I don't know them. I had terrible stage fright. And one day the organizer of the church was like, hey, so actually my guide started telling me, you need to get out of your comfort zone. You need to give a talk. And I was like, no. And they were like, you need to give a speech. And I was like, no. They were like, share your story. I was like, no. And then one day I was at the spiritualist church, service ended. I was getting ready to leave. I would always give a bunch of messages to people there and stuff. Like at the end of service, the guy that held the services would give messages from spirit, and then he would ask me to give messages from spirit to the people as well. And they were like such great messages. It was so cool to be able to do that, which is why I do that now in my healing circle that I do on Mondays. But the organizer came up and she was like, hey, you're going to give a talk on the 17th of August. And I was like, what? And she was like, yep, I'll put you down. And I was like, no, I'm not giving a talk. And she was like, yeah, you are. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I am not. I have nothing to talk about. She was like, how about this? I'll put you down and then you think about it and let me know at least a week beforehand, and I'll take you off if you can't come up with anything. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So I reached out to my teacher. I was like, I don't know what the fuck to do here. I was like, I have no clue what I'm going to talk about. And she was like, why don't you tell your story leading up to where you're at right now? And I was like, that's a good idea. And that's easy. But people don't give a shit about me or my story. And she was like, yes, they do. They will. Trust me. She said, your story and any story that you tell is going to be very powerful, and people are going to get a lot out of it, which is why I tell a lot of stories now, because my stories help people relate and they help people understand and yeah, all that. So anyway, went to the church, scared to death. So like, I'm not like tooting my own horn or anything, but at the church, a lot of people knew that I was very intuitive. So when they found out that I was going to be sharing my story or I was going to be giving a talk, there was a lot of interest. So like instead of like 6 to 8 people being there was like 15, 16 people there, which was a lot for me. And I was like afraid I was going to pass out and all that stuff. So anyway, gave the talk, went amazing. People were like, dude, that was so amazing to hear your story. And I was like, okay, I think it's amazing, but I didn't think anyone else would think it's amazing. So I did. And I was leaving the church and I was talking with one of my friends at the church outside. I had my glasses on at the time and it was kind of raining and I had a little drizzle on them. And then it was me and him. He was standing in front of me and the street was at my back. Telephone wires were right above us. And this little white moth came up and it just kind of, and I was like, it caught my attention and I watched it and then it kind of like disappeared and I was like, where the fuck did it go? And then I caught something out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, what is that? And it was kind of amplified because of the water on my glasses. And I looked up, and on the lowest telephone wire, like 5 feet from me, there was this all white owl. I have a picture of it as well, but an all white owl that was standing there looking at me. And I was like, dude, no way. And I was like in awe, because what was happening in that moment is that full circle with the owls and my guides. And when I looked at that owl, my guides were like, it starts now. And I was like, what? And they were like, it starts now. And that owl was just validation that I just opened up my future by that talk. And I was like, there's no way. Just that little talk opened up my future. And I was just then waiting for my future. And then I started getting the urge to start holding meetups. And I did. And I was in the closet with all the spiritual stuff. I didn't tell many people that I did it and stuff besides my spiritual community. And I started doing meetups using the Meetup app. And it was amazing. I had a great turnout. I started doing workshops, had great turnouts. Started doing private energy healing session, had great business with that. I was going to people's houses, doing healing sessions in their houses. I was starting to cleanse houses of evil, negative stuff. I was doing readings. I was doing mediumship parties. Things were taking off. But then they wouldn't. And the universe was like, hey, look, we love it, but you're confusing the shit out of us on where you want to go. And I was like, I don't like that. You're telling me that, basically, but I understand it. So at that time, the universe was like, you need to ask yourself, what feels the most natural for you? What feels like you're the most drawn to it? And it was energy healing for me. And they said, now we want you to dive into that. Don't worry about the other things. We don't want you doing psychic readings, mediumship, but I love doing that. But they were like, we want you to do this. So I did. And then business started getting really, really good. And then I started worrying about the money. And then it got bad again. And then I had to balance the whole money versus giving and just all that stuff, which is hard. And I can go, like, there's a lot more that I can go into, but I'm trying to shorten it up because I'm already at 42 minutes. But so then I went through a year of working at the Enquirer again. I had to quit my job, take a risk, and there's just so much I can say, but I'm kind of getting tired, honestly. And this is a long story already, but I quit my high-paying job to go do the Enquirer, and that was a whole year of learning, of riding on that route for 6 hours a night, listening to spiritual videos and podcast, and like just learning everything I could on a spiritual level. It was literally for 6 hours a night I would watch videos, connected with so many different people, and it just changed my life. And then I was finally ready. I dealt with some money issues, some beliefs that were affecting my money, and then life started to get really great, and just in time for my son to start getting old enough to know about stuff. And he was about one or so. I don't even know how old he was, but he was about one-ish, 6 months. And I was like, I'm done working. I'm going to do real estate and do my spiritual stuff. And eventually real estate's going to go away for me. And then spiritual stuff is going to take over. And that's exactly what happened. Real estate's starting to go away for me, but not my wife. Brittany's a real estate agent, and she does amazing work. So if you want your house sold or you want to buy a house, she is amazing. And I am still right there helping her. I still have my real estate license. I'm just not directing my energy towards that because that's not what I want. I still take my classes. I still learn. I know the market, all that stuff. And then I did. I started working with real estate. Real estate went booming, and we started to have a lot of money. And the spiritual stuff was taking off like no other. And then I was like, I'm gonna create my own center. And I did. And I had that center for a couple of years. It was just me. And then I decided to make a bigger center with bringing on more practitioners to create a healing space for the community. And I did that. And that's been for 2 years now, maybe year and a half. And I'm feeling my way through that right now. It's very hard dealing with other people, especially spiritual people. You would think it'd be all love and light, and it is. But a lot of people just like fly by the edge of they're on the edge of their seat all the time, just doing whatever they feel like, and it's really hard to manage that. So I'm now dealing with all of that and understanding that people are busy and I can't get the whole center together all the time, and there's a lot there, but I'm learning. And my guides just recently told me that being I am being I am learning how to be in a more of a leader position, basically. Not like I'm the leader of the pack. Like I'm gonna help people, the healers. Like I'm gonna help the healers develop and understand how to help this world while still helping people on a personal level. That story can go so much longer, but if you have any questions about anything, comment and let me know, because it's really cool to reminisce on this. To be honest, I haven't thought about all this in a long time, but that's my story and the short version, the medium version, not the short, medium version, and yeah, life's magical, man. It truly is, and you don't know where the hell you're gonna be this time next year, even in 6 months. So don't ever rule anything out and understand that anything's possible for the most part. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed my story, and you can check out my website at www.thecenterforhealingandintegration.com. I have training courses. I also have information on other practitioners. I have information on myself. I have all kinds of stuff there. Check out the Facebook page at the Center for Healing and Integration. Tons of information there. And if you're local to Cincinnati, there's tons of events that you can attend, and they're free. And yeah, I appreciate you watching this, and I hope it was a good story for you.